read a little bit of recipe art.
Okay, and then I'll follow up on something that you said. But I should actually start with earlier. Let me see. Well, recipe art started when I started noticing. I would read reviews in the New York Times of exhibitions, and I just started noticing these things put together, and stupidly I didn't actually save, although my house is filled with clippings in the New York Times. There was a very funny piece on Facebook the other day about that, about what are people who are obsessive hoarders of newspapers going to do when there are no newspapers. But anyway, I didn't save the first ones, but I started to just feel like that there was this thing called recipe art that existed, and that so the last part of this book is called Trite Tropes, and there's a series of essays that are interlinked. So the first one is called Trite Tropes, Cliches, or the Persistence of Styles. And I want to start a little bit with the Persistence of Styles, because it then led to recipe art. And so what I'm saying is that I want to write, I set out to write that essay looking at not high art, not the top of the cream of the crop, but more what you encounter as a journeyman teacher, being on slide juries, etc. And this was the initial part of this actually began in a slide jury. The persistence of styles can be attested to by anyone who teaches art at the undergraduate level or graduate level, who visits art schools around the country, or who serves on slide juries for schools, artist colonies, or state or private grants. The subject of this essay first occurred to me when I served on one such a slide jury in 1999. Typically, during the preliminary round of a slide jury's review, jurors may look at anywhere from 4,000 to 8,000 slides in one day, in groups of 4 or 5 images in 15 to 30-second intervals. Slide, well, now it's PowerPoint. Slide, 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 slide. After the first few hours, things may get a little silly. Jurors can't help but notice patterns, some of them inane. There may be an inordinate amount of paintings of pears or bears or sheep. After the 10th sheep appears, helpless hilarity may ensue. And actually, let me just do something that I've wanted to do, because I put a lot of time into the notes for this book, and the notes have a lot of material in them, so I'll read you an updating of this. In 2006, a jury review yielded a surfeit of birds, often appropriated from the same general library of 19th century illustrations and Audubon guides. After I called my fellow jurors' attention to their frequency, my colleagues started poking me in the ribs every time birds appeared. We speculated on why they were there. Was it to telegraph the artist's interest in nature or in freedom? My guesses were based in personal experience. Very recently, a friend sent me a picture of me taken in 1973 in my studio at the California Institute of the Arts, where I was a graduate student. On the wall behind me are numerous gouaches and pencil works on paper representing the very same birds from the very same sources, with poetic or political words sprawled next to them, therefore replicating some of the persistent styles I discussed in this essay. I doubt if I had much of a reason for using these images. I was influenced by other artists who used them, from various surrealist artists I admired to Pat Steer, who used such images in her work around 1970, at a time when I often visited her studio. Anyway, just to continue with this a little bit. However, a fly-on-the-wall glimpse into and a deconstructive exegesis of such jury sessions, which are always confidential and take place in darkened rooms, would certainly be worth a year of graduate school. First, they would reveal the existence of an established knowledge base of art codes widely shared by jurors who were usually selected to represent disparate aesthetic and social views. Jurors hope for an individual voice to emerge from the artist's conversation with art history and contemporary art. One hopes for someone who has something to say and who is at the same time engaged with the language of form. But this is the rarest thing, so jurors look for familiarity with and competence in the chosen style. They know the basic vocabulary and the cliches of each genre. The criterion is how well the familiar is deployed and articulated. They feel duty-bound to choose the best of styles they don't personally work in. Democracy does reign. At the same time, the fly on the wall would see a predictable range of known styles from the last 100 years, which can be summarized instantly in shorthand descriptions. Trite and trippy, Pearlstein on acid, slack or Guston. The panel nods in agreement and groans when the artist evidently couldn't decide which trope they wanted to address and threw too many style references into the pot. What were they thinking? So that's the trite tropes part of it. And then, but then recipe art. So I'll read you the beginning of recipe art. What makes an artwork look contemporary? This is an important question because the acquisition of this knowledge and the skills to act on this understanding are key to market success and also to successful intervention in the status quo of received ideas. Nevertheless, this is the wrong question because the contemporaneity of an artwork today pre-exists one's citing of it. It is established by language, by how efficiently and commodifiably it can be described. There's no point in describing what makes an artwork look contemporary because that quality of the contemporary changes all the time, and to complicate matters may even include the use of aged, decrepit materials. Yet one knows contemporary art when one sees it, or more accurately, when one hears it described. And these are quotes from reviews and articles, mostly from the New York Times art section. Most impressive is the life-size Zamboni, the big gliding machine that restores the ice of a hockey rink, constructed out of rigid pale green insulation foam by Chris Hansen and Hedrika Sonnenberg. A chandelier made of 14,000 tampons by the Portuguese artist Joana Vasconcelos. I'm trying to make gravel out of Play-Doh, explains Tom Friedman helpfully. A tiny self-portrait carved on an aspirin, a color field fresco rendered in aqua toothpaste, a nearly life-size figure of himself fashioned entirely from sugar cubes. Embodied in the high concept, one or two sentence description, the recipe ingredients usually include something from the real, cleverly juxtaposed with something else from the real, or something made with a material from the real not ordinarily an art material, something that references the real, something made from something else. So for example, a minimalist sculpture made from chocolate, a similarly monumental cube made of a million wooden toothpicks, Richard Serra leaning plates made of red lipstick, etc. Recipe, something from popular culture plus something from art history plus something appropriated plus something weird or expressive equals useful promotional soundbite. The work is selected for review because it can be written about efficiently. It is not necessary to see the piece.
People square me? I will self-indict. I love some of this art. I've shown some of this art. I will continue to show some of it.